The Turkish incursion into northern Iraq is entering its sixth day amid claims and counterclaims of violence. The Turkish military says it's killed more than 150 Kurdish rebels since crossing the border on Thursday.
But the PKK rejects those casualty figures and it's warned Turkey that it's entered into a conflict it cannot win. Many of Turkey's Kurds are also growing increasingly frustrated. Our correspondent Hoda Abdelhamid went to the southeastern town of Diyarbakir, where she found growing support for the PKK. But first, James Bays is on the Iraqi side of the border, where he's been given exclusive access to a town caught in the middle of the conflict.
We travelled deep into the mountains. We were the first journalists allowed on this road since the Turkish military operation began 5 days ago. For some of the time, we would have been clearly visible to the Turkish military in a camp on their side of the border. It was also clear we were well within the range of their fire. We haven't seen any Turkish military activity as we've made this journey through the mountains, but we have seen the effect of Turkish bombardment. This is a shell which I'm told landed recently. Just below the Turkish camp, on the Iraqi side of the border, the village of Dishtata. It is a Christian community with a troubled history. It was destroyed by Saddam Hussein and most of its people forcibly relocated to Baghdad. People told me they came back when the village was rebuilt 3 years ago to flee the bloodshed in the Iraqi capital. Now the mayor says they're on the front line again.
Myself, I'm a man. I'm not afraid. But because I have a family, children and a wife, they are afraid.
Another resident expressed his frustration and fear.
We fled before, but now we're facing this. We are certainly afraid because we don't know when the Turks will come down to us.
There are just a few women left in the village. Over tea, some of the men told me their wives and children had been sent to stay with relatives in safer areas. There's one thing that everyone I've spoken to here agrees on. They all say that in the 3 years since this village has been rebuilt, none of them have seen a single PKK fighter, and they can't understand why this area is now being shelled. James Bays, Al Jazeera, Dishtata in northern Iraq.
A show of support for Turkey's #1 enemy, defiantly carrying the picture of Abdullah Öcalan, the founder of the PKK, currently in Turkish jail on terrorism charges. But for many Kurds here, Apo, as they call him, is the man who gave them a sense of identity.
We cover our faces because we don't want to be recognized. We are the foot soldiers of Apo. We cover our faces because we are the PKK.
They hide so they don't get tortured. I have already been tortured so many times, I don't fear them anymore. The guerrillas are in the mountains and in the cities.
Anger has been mounting since the Turkish offensive started a few months ago.
For many years, Turkey's war against the PKK is also a war against their sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. The more the fighting goes on the other side of the border, the more Kurds on this side of the border are willing to publicly show support for what Turkey and the international community consider as a terrorist organization.
Hamza's son is a fighter in the mountains of northern Iraq. Her daughter was also part of the guerrilla movement. She was killed 9 months ago. All she has left is their photos, which she carries always with her, close to her heart. She tells me that she's tired of the bloodshed, but still, she doesn't trust the government. Kurds in southern Turkey have voted for Prime Minister Erdogan in last July's election, believing he would bring them more democratic reforms. Many still prefer to watch the protests from a distance. But as the incursion in northern Iraq continues, there is a risk that they will soon join the voices of dissent. Hoda Abdelhamid, Al Jazeera, Diyarbakir.